Hello and welcome to this episode of Shatterdice Reviews, and today's board game review is the progenitor of perilous adventure, the granddaddy of grueling dungeons, the originator of horrible monsters. It's the one, the only, Heroquest. First released in 1985 by Games Workshop and now re-released by Hasbro in 2020, Heroquest is the classic dungeon crawler on which all modern crawlers are based. Shadows of Brimstone, Dungeon Saga, Descent 2nd Edition, Sword and Sorcery, even the lofty heights of Gloomhaven have at least one pillar in their foundation that share DNA with Heroquest. So what is Heroquest? And more importantly, with its re-release, can this old dog offer up any new tricks? In Heroquest, up to 4 players will take on the role of a hero, while 1 player takes on the role of the evil wizard Zargon, or Morcar if you played the European version back in the before times. Let's take a look at how the hero player's game works first. On a hero's turn, they will perform a move and an action. These can be done in any order, first moving, then acting, or first acting and then moving. However, movement cannot be split. Performing a partial move, acting, and then completing their move is not allowed in Heroquest. So, movement, how does that work? Well, Heroquest is such an old game, it uses roll to move, a mechanic largely maligned by modern board games in favour of more fixed methods, allowing players to plan more reliable strategies. When moving, a player rolls 2 6-sided dice and may move a number of squares on the board up to the result on the dice roll. Players may move their hero through other heroes, but not through enemies, which can create some very tricky situations for a hero party. When moving around the dungeon, heroes will encounter doors that lead into the various rooms and chambers. Fortunately for the heroes, this does not cost them an action or any movement to open a door they have found, so a good dice roll can get a hero a fair way ahead of the rest of the party, which players may want to think very carefully about before they do. The actions available to a hero are attacking, searching for treasure, searching for traps, and searching for secret doors. And for some of the heroes, casting spells or using abilities or items. Let's take a look at searching first, as these are all very simple. Searching for traps or secret doors uses the exact same process. So much so that in the old European version of the game, it was the same action. The hero player simply tells the evil wizard player they are searching for traps or secret doors. Zargon will then consult the quest book, which contains all the details of the quest known only to them. If there are any secret doors, Zargon then places a secret door token in the space shown on the map in the quest book. Heroes may then pass through this token like any other door in the game. If the heroes search for traps, then Zargon consults the quest book, but this time they do not place any tokens on the board. Instead, Zargon points to spaces that contain traps and tells the heroes that these spaces look suspicious. It is up to the heroes to remember which spaces contain traps. Searching for treasure is a little different. First, Zargon consults the quest book, and if the room contains any special quest notes, such as the first hero to search this room finds a helmet, Zargon will inform them of their reward, and the player records it on their character sheet. If there is no special quest note, or another hero has already claimed any special treasure from the room, then the searching player draws a card from the treasure deck. The treasure deck contains an assortment of gold crowns, gems, potions, but also a few nasty surprises like hazards, poisons, and wandering monsters. Also, searching for treasure can only be done in rooms, not passageways. Now, let's take a look at the main action of the game, attacking. What would a dungeon crawler be without monsters to fight? And in Heroquest, you will be fighting a lot of them. Attacking is a very simple action. When a hero is adjacent to an enemy, they may declare an attack. In Heroquest, adjacent refers to the 4 cardinal directions, and unless using a weapon that specifically states otherwise, you cannot attack enemies that are diagonal to your hero. When an attack is declared, the hero takes a number of these special combat dice equal to the attack dice value listed on their hero card, and rolls them. Each score rolled is a single hit. Zargon then rolls a number of combat dice equal to the defense dice value listed on the monster card for the type of monster being attacked. For each one of these symbols rolled, referred to as a black shield, the enemy blocks one of the hits rolled by the hero. Remove any successful hit dice for each block, and then the monster takes damage equal to the remaining hits rolled. Most enemies in Heroquest only have one body point, and so a single point of damage will slay them. Heroes can acquire weapon cards, such as the longsword, which allows diagonal attacks, or even the crossbow, allowing for a deadly 3-dice attack anywhere within the hero's line of sight. As you can see, the gameplay for Heroquest is pretty simple, so let's take a look at what it is like to play as the evil wizard Zargon. The player taking on the role of Zargon essentially serves as a dungeon master. However, this is a somewhat limited role, as the quest book contains the location of every monster, door, trap, as well as any special notes regarding quest items or NPCs and boss enemies. Essentially, your role as Zargon is very simple. Wait for the heroes to move into a new area, consult the quest book, and set up everything in line of sight. Ideally, you will do this with suitable dramatic flair, as the hero players are wowed by the wonderfully crafted furniture pieces, doors, and monsters. You will be the narrator of this story that unfolds, and when the heroes finish their turn, you can use any surviving monsters on the board to attack them. Unlike heroes, Zargon's monsters have a fixed movement value, but attack in the same way. When a monster attacks a hero, however, the hero rolls defense dice as indicated on their character card, but instead of blocking hits using the black shield, they block hits when rolling this symbol, referred to as the white shield. Most of Zargon's monsters are very simple, but occasionally some will be able to cast spells from the Dread Magic deck. These are usually boss enemies and are a little tougher than the usual monsters. There usually isn't much else to do as Zargon. You really do just spend most of the game setting up the various game elements and attacking the heroes when the opportunity arrives. But there is a lot of freedom here as Zargon, as the rules do not prevent you from providing hints or misdirection. You are also the final arbiter on any rulings. To be honest, when I think about what Heroquest is and when it was made, it strikes me as a game made by Dungeons & Dragons players who were perhaps parents to young children and wanted to make a version of Dungeons & Dragons easy to understand and play. The colourful dungeon board and characters certainly further that opinion. Not to say the game is childish, but the role of Zargon is so minimalistic. I imagine the most joy you will get from this role is seeing the excitement and wonder on the faces of players discovering fantasy and adventure for the first time. And this is about it for Heroquest's base rules, really. It's all very simple and straightforward. It's a game from a different time, and while mechanics and rules have come a long way, we can all look back fondly on this foundational grandfather of gaming history as we send it off into that long good night with a tear and a salute. You didn't really think that was the end, did you? Heroquest might have started back in 1985, but we have had 4 years since its revival, and while Hasbro has kept the core of this game the same, they have released many of the old expansions along with new characters and new campaigns that bring in new rules and ways to play the game. Chief amongst these is the Heroquest app, allowing you to play without the need for anyone to take on the role of Zargon. So let's take a look at how that works. The app for Heroquest is perhaps one of the most well-produced and professional-looking board game accessories I have ever seen. This fully replaces the need for a Zargon player, as the app tracks pretty much everything, from monster actions all the way to which rooms have been searched for treasure. And unlike a human Zargon, the app won't forget to call out a hero who stands on a trap, or leave an orc on the other side of the board forgotten and alone. What's more, the app is voice acted with a deep gravelly narrator introducing the quests, and during Zargon's turn you'll be heckled and jeered by a voice I can only describe as Saturday morning cartoon villain playing the part of Zargon. The app will roll attacks for villains and give you rules reminders for any special abilities a monster might have. You can also track any damage done to them in the app, or to heroes for that matter, cutting down the need for any wound tokens. This app is really good for you and 3 friends to use if you want to take on the dungeon and nobody wants to take on that quite tedious role of Zargon. But the app is not some magical panacea that gets rid of all of Heroquest's issues. First and foremost, it does too much. Due to the nature of traps and other game elements, the app needs to know where the heroes are, and more importantly, the exact path they take through the dungeon. This means on your turn, you will trace your path on the app using your character icon. This means that combined with everything else the app does, the only thing you actually need is a character sheet, treasure deck, equipment and artifact decks, as well as the Heroquest dice. You can literally play this board game without the board and miniatures by just following along in the app. This actually allows you to play Heroquest on the go. As long as you have your phone, you can play Heroquest anywhere you want, and you can save during quests too, so you don't have to play a full quest all at once. But this also has the downside that when you play this with your friends, you will quickly realise the board itself is just slowing you down. Why update everything on the board when the app is already tracking everything? It quickly becomes a tedious affair, and you may as well just hook the app up to a bigger monitor and forget about the board. And playing this way, of course, turns the Heroquest board game into the Heroquest video game with a few extra steps. The second issue with the app is that a good Zargon player has a human brain, hopefully, that understands how to keep the game fun and exciting. For example, if the heroes are getting stomped into the ground, they may suddenly find a few healing potions in an empty room instead of the 3 orcs and 18 goblins the quest book says is in there. This, of course, doesn't happen with the app. It doesn't care if you are having fun, and so sometimes an app-run game can just be a depressing slog as you are beaten to death with no respite. The app is free though, so there is no reason not to get it, but it is not without its issues. So with all that said, let's take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. The best thing about Heroquest is its simple rule set and quick setup time. You can be ready to go in a few minutes, and you can teach anyone from children to adults the basics of the game in just a few more. Heroquest is very accessible. What's more, it looks great. The miniatures are really nice, the board is crisp and vibrant, and cards have this nice art style that just brings so much character to the game. The game also encourages you to make your own quests, providing a blank map page featuring all the symbols you will need to make your own quests. Heroquest also gets a big plus for that simplistic nostalgia it brings. You are the hero, and Zargon is the baddie. That's it. Whatever evil plot Zargon is cooking up this week, it's your job to put a stop to it. No silly backstory about how Zargon is a misunderstood, poor orphan who was bullied at wizard school by Mentor because he was from a less economically stable household, and that's why he now wants to take over the realm. None of that contrived nonsense, just plain, simple, good versus evil. The bad. Game length can depend on the look of your dice rolls, but by and large, Heroquest goes on for too long for such a simple game. Heroquest feels like a game that should take about an hour or 90 minutes to play, but some quests just go on and on, as there are so many monsters and the hero's dice rolling is not going so well. When Heroquest gets past the 2-hour mark, it becomes tedious, especially if you are playing Zargon. That brings us on to playing Zargon. For the most part, this is just an extremely boring role, where you have few actions to take and fewer choices to make. Artificial difficulty is also a massive issue here, as it's all about what you roll, with little to no dice mitigation. You can get potions that allow dice rerolls, but for the most part, what you roll is what you get. This can really drag the game out if you keep getting poor attack rolls and spend several turns missing your target, especially as you only get 1 attack per turn. And if the whole party misses, it feels like a complete waste of a turn. The ugly. There isn't actually much to say here. Heroquest has its good and bad points, but not much in between. The game board is somewhat of an ugly point, as while it is very versatile for dungeon layouts, it doesn't bring much thematic feeling to the game. It is very bland and relies on the furniture pieces to give it any visual presence. I'd also say the secret doors are a bit ugly. Oftentimes, heroes will have to find a secret door, which if they forget to search for, can lead to a tedious backtrack through the dungeon as they search every room. Secret doors should really just lead to extra bits of treasure and bonus content and not be so integral to progression through a quest. I'll also put the app here. It's a nice thing to have, but it could have been implemented in a much more interesting way. So what do I think of Heroquest? Well, honestly, it outstays its welcome. While some quests are really good, tell a fun story and are well paced, some are just a tedious slog through an unforgiving gauntlet of monsters and traps. The core quest book comes with 14 quests, and after a handful of these that do little to change up the formula, you may be inclined to move on to something else. And that's before you even get some of the expansions that just throw more monsters into the mix, dragging things out even further. I do enjoy Heroquest, but in small doses. Bye.